What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So today here in Forza Horizon 5, there's something I've been wanting to talk about for a minute now, which is going to be the upgrading system in this game, and how I do think other games probably should do it, or at least, take cues from it anyway. But if you are wondering though, or maybe you are going to be new to the game, or maybe you really don't know how the upgrading system works, you pretty much can buy any part of your liking to the vehicle and make it a certain level. You can do something like street parts and stuff like that. You can move over to like intakes and buy different ones. As you guys can see right now, my vehicle is currently 698. I could add something to it, for example, for this, which would make it 700 or something like that, which is max for B. But you can also do something like A or C and D, depending on the vehicle, S1 and all that. But one of my favorite things about this is easily down to the fact that you could pretty much buy all of your parts and get the ones you actually want for that vehicle. Whether you're like, okay, let me build an A vehicle, buy those parts for it, you can do that or something. But I think one of the biggest things is, though, and this is probably coming from someone who has been playing the crew for a very long time, which is probably coming down to the fact of, you're probably going to have to farm certain parts or go after certain parts for the vehicle, and then you're going to have to re-roll an RNG and get those parts and stuff. And I gotta admit, guys, I just feel like having the system like Forza Horizon 5, and the other game, by the way, is Need for Speed Unbound, Need for Speed Heat also did this. You could pretty much buy the parts you want and just go, okay, well, I want to upgrade this Lambo, or I want to upgrade this Ferrari, I want to upgrade this Nissan GTR or something. You don't have to go and drive that or something. Now, it is going to be class-based and Motorfest, like Street Tier 1, Tier 2. You get the part sets, then you finally have them. You can move them to each vehicle. But I do like the fact that in Forza, though, if you want to upgrade that vehicle, you could simply go in there and spend normally around $50,000 to $100,000, depending on the car, the upgrades. Sometimes you can also do the engine swaps, which is another thing I love about this game, by the way. Heading over to this car right here, which is going to be the Rebel, there is going to be a good amount of engine swaps for it. And with that, you could do something like the regular base motor, which is currently what I'm running in it, which I honestly kind of like running a base motor. Depending on the vehicle, though, you sometimes do need to swap it to at least make it a little better. Or if you do want to have it like higher leveled, like for example, I could put an 8.9 liter in it, or a 7.4 liter V8 twin turbo makes it an S1. And yeah, you can also make these things pretty dang fast, man. 1700 horsepower, 14 foot-pounds of torque. So yeah, you could probably swap it and then also buy the parts and stuff like that, and then add certain things to it, which I really do think this system is fantastic. Now, do let me know in the comments. I don't know of another recent game, or a lot of games for that matter, to where you can engine swap your vehicle. I do remember doing it a good amount in something like Need for Speed Unbound, Need for Speed Heat. I also do know you could do some type of engine swapping in Gran Turismo 7, but I would probably guess it's not going to be on the scale of Forza Horizon 5. Now, one thing I did want to ask y'all, though, is what do y'all think about this system compared to like an RNG, like grind type of system, maybe like an MMO type, to where you're going to grind those said parts for that car? Would you rather have something to where you go in and go, okay, well, I want to all-wheel drive swap this, or I want to buy the intake, or I want to buy this manifold part, or I want to buy this engine for it? Maybe you can have those options. I want to put racing brakes, or maybe those brakes make my vehicle a tad too strong or something. Let me put the weaker ones on. Let me then add it into there. Let me add an exhaust part onto it. I really do feel like having the options like that to where you can buy the parts is most likely going to be the best way to do it. Now, one thing I've also found a bit interesting about this, though, is I have been noticing more and more people going, you know what, man, I would personally love to see other racing games follow this, or I would rather see something like the next crew game maybe doing a system like this one. I also want to know what y'all think about that. Do you hope the next crew game that comes out, which we all do know that's in development already, when that does end up coming out one day, do you guys also hope to see a revised performance system in that game with upgrading? Do you kind of hope? I'm probably going to guess and say you're probably like I am, going, please do not do the RNG rolling, or don't have it so you have to get like the chemist part, or have like certain sets to where you're most likely never going to use them, so you have to get the other parts and then hope you're going to get the one you want. Now, they did end up adding like the merging system, which was definitely going to help a lot with grinding, but even that's randomized, though, which again is going to be an RNG type of system. I am going to take a big guess right now, and by looking at recent comments and other videos, that, well, people seem to want to have a better upgrading system in a racing game similar to Forza Horizon, which honestly really does seem to work pretty dang good. Playing this game so far and going through different vehicles and looking at the upgrades, guys, I love the fact that I can get the car if I want it. You're obviously going to need some money, but again, it's not super expensive to upgrade your vehicle. If anybody played Need for Speed Unbound, I think a maxed out car and that was like, what was it, like $350,000, 400 grand, depending on the parts you put on it and stuff, or engine swaps on Heat were like $300,000 to $400,000, which I understand. But also, I do think a lot of people are probably going to want to upgrade their vehicles, and maybe people don't want to grind for hours and hours just to buy like a part for their car. That was one thing I loved about Forza. In fact, guys, when I first started playing this game, like a week after it came out, I was buying vehicles and going through upgrades, and I said to my friend, I'm like, dude, I can't believe how cheap this is. I'm only spending 60 grand on this car to buy the parts I want, and then boom, my car's good enough. Now, if you're going to buy an engine swap, I think the one truck I was driving, the engine swap was like 70 grand. All the upgrades maybe was like 120,000. That's still going to be, what, 3 times less than Need for Speed Unbound? And that's something I really do think a racing game should focus on, man. A lot of players are probably looking to buy the specific parts they want, which is probably also why a lot of people love Need for Speed Heat. And I do know Unbound costed more to do it, but I do feel like Heat also did a great job because you pretty much go, okay, well, I need the ECU part. I kind of need the gearbox part. Once those are done, though, I could pretty much move on. They're going to be maxed out. And this is something I never really thought about that much. Now, this is again coming from someone who did end up playing Need for Speed Heat, Unbound, also the Crew franchise. So yeah, those games did have the upgrading system. I do know Gran Turismo 7 has the upgrading system like this, to where you buy the parts, you put them on the vehicle, you have like tier to parts, and then you go, okay, I want tier 3, you put that on the car, you buy it, and that's pretty much it. And the one thing I've been noticing though is a lot of people are like, please, let's actually have a better system like Forza, even Need for Speed and Gran Turismo, to where you can buy the parts you want. And in ways I honestly, this might actually sound kind of stupid. I do also kind of like having parts that do make sense though. For example, in the Crew Motorfest, you are going to have something like a gearbox upgrade or an engine upgrade for something like an EV. In this game, you're actually going to have a battery upgrade, which I will show footage of this in the background. And you can't go in there and go, okay, well, let me add the exhaust modification to it. Does that make any sense? Oh, let me put the camshaft in my EV. Sir, where's the camshaft at, if you know what I mean? Okay, let me add my displacement. To what, bro? The Duracell battery? Like, come on. That is one thing I also liked. Again, I know that might sound stupid, but I like seeing more realistic things in there. Like some vehicles, for example, the older cars are going to have something like a carburetor, which you're not going to see on newer cars. You're then going to have something like the ignition, valves, displacement. You have pistons, compression, a flywheel, oil, and cooling. You can then move over to like the drivetrain or even something and add like the weight reduction. Put on a full-on chassis and stuff in there, like the regular roll cage upgrade. Like that stuff is dope, man. And I do feel like a lot of players, especially if you're into cars, by the way, which I do have a video coming on this. Forza Horizon 5 is amazing if you're a car person, which if you're playing a big racing game with a car list like this and vehicles, I'm going to take a wild guess and say that you probably like cars and trucks somewhere, am I right? So I really do think being able to jump in and go, okay, well, I really like, let's say, the Cadillac or something. I really do love the CTS-V or something. I love this car. You can go in there, add the parts you want to it, upgrade the supercharger, do all that stuff, do the displacement, and that vehicle is going to be good to go by just buying the parts you want. Imagine having to get into something like the Cadillac. I do understand it's, again, class-based in TCM, which, you know what's funny, though, is for that game, it does kind of work. I do know they brought it over from the Crew 2, but I personally hope in the next game they maybe take a different approach to it, maybe not do the exact same thing. I do understand in Motorfest they obviously brought it over, but hopefully the next Crew game is maybe going to take a different approach to where I can actually buy the parts for my vehicle, spend anywhere from 50 to like 150,000, again, engine swaps and all that. But if you're buying regular parts, bro, I think you're in for like 50, 60 to 80,000 most of the time in them. Some vehicles are going to have more parts and upgrades for them, but I love being able to buy the specific parts and also seeing vehicles have parts that do make sense to them, whether that's going to be the throttle body or something like the carburetor. Again, if you're driving an EV, you're going to have a battery upgrade. I do like those small things of detail in a game, and I feel like a lot of people are also going to agree. So I guess the biggest question here, if we're looking at something like the upgrading system in Forza Horizon 5, and why I do think other games really should take the note on this and maybe follow it, do you guys also agree that being able to buy your parts really is the best way to do it in a racing game? Again, this might end up sounding stupid, but we all do know a lot of games are kind of different now. They take different approaches. But I would say for a racing game, giving players options to buy the parts they want for it, and maybe have like the leveling system of that car, like for example in Forza, to where it's like B or A and stuff, so you can't buy every part, you have to buy like a weaker version of it. I honestly feel like something like that can even work. Again, that's also present in something like Unbound, which the more that I think about it, I feel like Need for Speed probably took some of the upgrading system from Forza, or at least, probably did some of that. I don't know what Need for Speed Payback was with the car system. It was very interesting, but I think they probably could have implemented that better. But honestly, I feel like if we're looking at a racing game, something like Forza really probably should be studied a bit because players love being able to buy the parts they want, and it's also not going to be an RNG rolled like, okay, let me go grind races for hours, hoping to get the parts I want. And then you're also going to have to re-roll a fix-it stats on it. And yes, I am talking about TCM because some people definitely had issues with it, or RNG just simply wasn't there. But instead, let me go buy the parts I am looking for. Do let me know what y'all think about this in the comments below. I am really curious. If I had to guess, I would say a lot of players are like, yo, give us the Forza Horizon 5 like concept or design. They can tweak it, do some things to it, but I feel like this way, being able to let us buy our parts is most obviously the best way to do it.